It's beginning to look a lot like travel time because the holidays are here. Have you done your Christmas shopping, or have you done your travel planning or your day planning? Whatever it is, before we get started, happy holidays to each and every one of you. And today I am here to present to you a wonderful end of year treat. And it's another episode of Digging in the Crates. So, you get me for the holidays. Yeah. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Digging in the Crates, a series brought to you by the Melanated Archives. I'm Kendra Touche, or just Kendra. And today we are rewinding the hands of time to shine a light on a trailblazing voice behind Saturday Night Live, the Danitra Vance, the first Black female repertory cast member of SNL. If you caught my episode on Charlie Barnett, the legendary comedian who almost beat out Eddie Murphy for a spot on SNL, then you might have heard this name mentioned briefly in that episode. Like Barnett, Danitra Vance had a complicated relationship with Saturday Night Live, and her early passing left fans and fellow performers alike shocked and heartbroken. For anyone who loves SNL history or just wants to know the behind-the-scenes laughter and drama, her life is both inspiring and unforgettable. This is the story of a Southside Chicago comedy genius whose brilliance was visible, her presence joyful, and her life far too short, but with an impact that resonates decades later. This is Danitra Vance's story, the story of SNL's meal ticket, who chose not to carry a load she wasn't willing to bear. Let's talk about my introduction to Danitra Vance, shall we? I didn't grow up hearing her name, but I do know a few people in my bloodline who worked closely with the legendary actress, like my cousin, director and playwright George C. Wolfe. Now, in 1991, PBS aired Wolfe's The Colored Museum, which chronicled melanated life in America. And the very first voice that you hear belongs to that of Danitra Vance. For anyone who has seen The Colored Museum, then you know that Danitra Vance played Miss Pat, the flight attendant in the iconic Get On Board sequence opening. Now, that role and all of her roles in The Colored Museum were memorable. And let's tell the truth about it. She stood out like a sore thumb amongst great performers, and I mean great performers, such as Suzanne Douglas, Loretta Devine was in it, Tommy Hollis, Phyllis Yvonne Stinkley, and more. Vance herself was a great one at the beginning of her career at the time, just about to conquer her career, her acting goals. And that wasn't bad at all for a little Black girl from Chicago, Illinois. And that is where our story begins. The Danitra Vance was born on July 13th, 1954 to Robert Vance and Laura Edwards. Shout out to all the baby boomers out there. We see y'all. She was raised on the south side of Chicago in a household where storytelling, theater, and lively debates, probably over spades or something, were said to be a part of the daily dynamic of the family. Now, she grew up along with her mother, her younger sister, Latrice Vance Lee, and her maternal grandparents. Coming from a family like that, Vance was sure to develop strong ways to express herself and entertain those around her as well. Now, after graduating from Thornton Township High School in 1972, she went on to study acting and playwriting at Roosevelt University, earning honors before heading to London's Webber Douglas Academy of Dramatic Art. There, she trained classically in Shakespeare and completed an entire MFA. Sis was determined to make it. She was determined to make it by any means necessary and on her own terms, making what came naturally to her work as a full-time career. Now, after returning to Chicago, Vance made significant strides to do just that. She performed at Second City before moving to New York City in 1981. And though she was armed with this classical training from both Chicago and London, she found that the industry was just unreceptive to casting a Black woman in dramatic roles like those she had spent so many years studying. I.e., she wasn't going to get hired automatically as Juliet or Lady Macbeth or pretty much anybody that was one of the main female characters in any Shakespeare or classical piece. Nobody was checking for her to play those roles now that she was attempting to make it in New York City. So she did what many of us end up doing. She supported herself through odd jobs, including waitressing, and she even worked retail at one point, and I believe it was at Bloomingdale's, all while pursuing her acting career. Frustrated by the lack of meaningful opportunities, Vance didn't lay down. She got up and she started making art for herself. She began writing her own materials, creating characters and sketches that reflected the nuance, the humor, and fullness she wasn't being offered at the time. I mean, she basically took the power back into her own hands. That creative fire in and of itself eventually led her to her off-Broadway breakout, a show that she produced, wrote, and starred in herself, Danitra Vance and the Mellow White Boys, staged at New York City's La Mama Experimental Theater in 1984. It was a bold blend of satire, character work, and social critique, introducing figures like teen mother Cabrini Green Jackson and Flotilla Williams, characters she would later bring to Saturday Night Live. Now, the show was critically praised. It won plenty of awards and repeatedly sold out shows, which cemented her reputation as an innovative, fearless voice of the 80s. And I just have to pause here because she was so Chicago with it. I mean, for anybody who's from Chicago or has studied Chicago history or has family in Chicago like me, then you know the history of Cabrini Green projects and the fact that she was able to riff off of that and make an entire character and bring her background into the piece and make it big was major. And I'm pretty sure that the Chicagoans were very, very excited and proud of her for doing that. Now, throughout this period, Vance continued building her own lane. And let me give you all some more context so that we can understand the scope of the movement that was even happening at that time. Now, in 1984, that year was pretty significant for melanated women in theater. You had Whoopi Goldberg's Broadway solo show that premiered the same year. And media commentators were quick, obviously, to draw comparisons simply because there were two Black women in theater using the solo show format to build their characters, comedic timing, and obviously get that theatrical presence and notoriety off the bat. The comparisons would continue well into Vance's SNL stardom, especially after a controversial 1986 sketch in which Vance played Celie from The Color Purple, which was obviously Whoopi Goldberg's breakout role. And in that sketch where she played Celie, she was also serving coffee to the SNL creator Lorne Michaels. The sketch was originally designed to criticize the limited roles Black women were given on the show, like maids and prostitutes, basically the help, which ended up being a real life frustration that Danitra Vance often spoke about even on the set of SNL. But the sketch also highlighted the media's insistence on pinning Black performers as if there was only enough room for one of them. Couple that with the fact that both of these particular performers were women and the rumor mills turned at a rapid speed. Now, true to character, Vance was not going to take that kind of underhanded ugliness well. She pushed back against the comparisons to Whoopi a few times, and time again, Danitra also insisted that there shouldn't be a belief that quote unquote only one of us, meaning Black women comedians, can exist at a time. I know that's right. I know that's right, sis. Danitra Vance was a creative in creative mode, and prior to that, she had to fight for the space and time to actually even hone that kind of craft. As a matter of fact, before her New York City breakout, Vance briefly returned to the Midwest to teach high school in Gary, Indiana. Shout out to the Jacksons. And her students there helped inspire early versions of certain characters as well that she later performed. Characters that once again added to her unique voice, comedic voice at the time. And this is the reason why actors and performers will always say that your lived experience will serve you well. And this is a prime example of how it served Danitra Vance well. She was able to pull from her students and bring it straight into SNL. So in 1985, Danitra Vance made history as Saturday Night Live's first Black female repertory cast member. She was only the third African American ever cast on the show. Now that was after Garrett Morris and Eddie Murphy. She was also the second lesbian cast member after Denny Dillon, and hired the same year as Terry Sweeney, the second openly LGBTQ plus cast member in the show's history. But here's the thing, Danitra's sexuality was widely known only within the industry, but not publicly during her lifetime. It only became publicly documented after her passing. Sis was quiet about her shit, and she probably felt like she had to be. Her path to SNL came directly from the explosive success of her off-Broadway show. But once she arrived at the doorstep of stardom, her experience was complicated, to say the very, very least. Danitra struggled, and the writer's room often tried to box her into these flat, stereotypical roles for Black women. And she also battled dyslexia on top of all of that. And if you remember my episode on Charlie Barnett, you will also remember the fact that he had difficulty reading as well, which was the reason why he actually did not show up to his initial audition for SNL. And the role ultimately went to Eddie Murphy. And even when SNL used her original characters like the Cabrini Green Jackson character, they rarely allowed Danitra to try something new or to stretch her, to explore the depths of her training. Even her own creative genius, the characters that she lovingly built, was being used to reinforce stereotypes instead of break through them. She wasn't given space to expand, to experiment, to show her range, and it became the exact trap she had fought her way out of in theater. And honestly, I think Danitra Vance ran into the same realization that Dave Chappelle and so many other comedians have talked about in the past. At some point, you have to ask yourself whether people are laughing with you or at you. And I think that she ultimately understood that a lot of the laughter was being done at her rather than with her. And once you feel that shift, then your whole mindset just changes. And you just start to wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Shout out to Shelton Jackson, Spike Lee. If you know, you know. There has long been a debate about whether Vance was fired or whether she walked away from SNL on her own. Although it is widely accepted that Danitra Vance chose to leave SNL at the end of the 1986 season because she was tired of being handed those same stereotypical roles over and over and over again. We know the story. There was also some other things that was happening on the other side of the table. Now, at the same time, that season also saw a major cast turnover. A lot of the people who were there were essentially let go. So it's not impossible that the network itself was ready to part ways too, especially with someone who they couldn't really control, somebody that wasn't going to be silent or wasn't going to be easily quiet about things. Danitra defended herself as an artist and defended her culture as a Black woman. And that alone can ruffle feathers in a space not built with you in mind. I think we all know that. But what we do know for sure is this. Her time on SNL lasted only one single season. And even in that one season, she left a mark too big to erase. And that mark she made on SNL didn't end there. It actually followed her into more theater, into film, and to every artistic space that she dared to touch after that season ended. Now on stage, Danitra Vance shined in George C. Wolfe's The Colored Museum and Spunk, earning an Obie Award for her work. Her film career started to soar as well, and she appeared in projects like Limit Up, The War of the Roses, Hanging with the Homeboys, and Lil Man Tate, earning praise for the same versatility and depth that she had been fighting to show ever since her earliest days in New York City. Her star kept rising, her presence kept expanding, but behind the scenes, Danitra was quietly facing a battle of her own. In 1990, Danitra Vance was diagnosed with breast cancer. And even while navigating treatments such as a single mastectomy, fear, and recovery, she did what came naturally. She turned to her lived experiences, and she turned that into art. She created one-woman shows like The Radical Girl's Guide to Radical Mastectomy, where she boldly and publicly revealed her mastectomy scars to inspire and empower others. She was a true humanitarian, a beautiful, righteous spirit. And Danitra fought through the early 90s with grace, determination, and fire, but ultimately passed away in 1994 at just 40 years old. Her final request says everything that we need to know about her giving spirit and her desire to uplift others always. Danitra asked that her funeral be held at an amusement park and that she be honored with a full going away party celebration. And her family, knowing the joy that lived inside of her, granted every part of that wish. It celebrated a life that was vibrant and brave, overflowing with impact far beyond her years. Danitra Vance was, without question, a trailblazer, a woman who bet on herself, held tight to her integrity, and embodied the message that Jennifer Lewis often repeats in many of her interviews from time to time, which is that you better know who you are before you get in the back of that limo. Best believe that Danitra Vance knew exactly who she was. She knew what she stood for. She lived that truth boldly. She broke barriers, made us laugh, and carved out a legacy we too must continue to honor and celebrate. You know, it's not too many people in this industry that have that kind of integrity even today in 2025. And this is spoken from someone who works on both sides of the table. It's sad that that kind of character is rare. Someone who is willing to be bold and speak up when it is time to do so. And so for that reason, I look up to people like Miss Danitra Vance, who had the audacity to stand 10 toes down and say what needed to be said, to try and make what was wronged right. Defending herself, defending her people, and defending her art all the way until the end. My hat goes off to her. That's our story for today. I'm Kendra Touche. Thanks for digging in the crates with me. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and follow the Melanated Archives on all of our social media platforms. Remember that melanated isn't just a skin tone. It's also a mindset too. And as long as you can see in color, you have the ability to create worlds that include and honor each and every one of us living here. And in the spirit of Miss Danitra Vance, it also defends each and every one of us living here as well. Until next time, stay true to you, set your tone, and move in ways that bring you peace and love always. I'm out, y'all. Happy holidays to you. If I don't see you again, I might drop another video. We'll see how it goes. But much peace, much love. Thanks for rocking with me. I'm out. Bio, bio. Oh, Leo farted. Leo farted. Leo farted. Oh.